Motorola finally made a comeback in Nepal after more than a year with two smartphone launches via the Daraz 1212 campaign. Among the two phones launched, Motorola G9 Play is a promising contender in the under 20k price segment in Nepal right now, going head-to-head with everyone's favorite, that is Poco M2. After more than a month of usage, today I'll be helping you decide between the two. So let's get started. You get the smartphone, usual paperwork, charging adapter, USB Type-C cable, transparent back case, and a wired earphone in the simple packaging of the Moto G9 Play. It was a rare sight to see the inclusion of an earphone here. As expected of an entry-level smartphone, the entire build is plastic here. But I must admit that it feels sturdier and better built when compared to Poco M2 on the hand. Unlike Poco M2 though, the back is a huge fingerprint magnet here, so I recommend you to use the somewhat decent back cover provided in the box. With a 20:9 aspect ratio, the phone is tall and weighs 200 grams. Despite seeming heavy on paper, the good weight distribution complemented by the curved edges results a good grip on hand. There is no IP certification, but the design does repel minor splashes of water. The rear camera module doesn't result any wobble, and there's that signature classic Motorola logo on the rear circular physical fingerprint sensor, which adds a little charm to this phone. The scanner is fast and responsive, and you can set up to swipe down on it to pull up the notification panel. Talking about sides, there are power, volume, and dedicated Google Assistant buttons on the right. Sadly, the Assistant button cannot be customized at all. The left side has the SIM tray, top side has a 3.5mm headphone jack, and the bottom side has the USB Type-C port and speaker grill. Overall, the build quality is definitely better than Poco M2, and if I have to nitpick, the only downside for me was the harder to reach Assistant button placement. The big 6.5-inch IPS LCD screen with minimum bezels except for the slightly bigger chin is attractive, but the 720p resolution just spoils the mood. The lack of sharpness isn't noticeable during normal uses, but is bad when viewing videos, especially on YouTube. DRM Info app shows Widevine L1 and HDR support, which was totally unexpected. Brightness is decent, but you'll certainly wish for more under direct sunlight. For content viewing and browsing the web, colors and contrast are perfectly fine with deeper blacks, which I didn't expect on an IPS LCD screen. Adjusting colors in the settings doesn't make much of a difference. Also, pixel response time is slow and can be noticed during scrolling, which is kind of expected for a 60Hz refresh rate screen. In the display settings, I found two useful features of the Moto G9 Play. First one is Peak Display, which is an always-on display-like feature that is activated when you bump your phone a little. You can then proceed to view notifications, reply to messages, and even open certain apps without unlocking your phone. Thus, it comes in handy when the phone is placed on a table and you don't want to lift it. Another feature is called Attentive Display, which prevents dimming or slipping of the phone screen as long as you're looking at it. It helps a lot when you are indecisive at times and just prefer to keep staring into the abyss of your phone. Snapdragon 662, despite being a worthy upgrade over Motorola G8 Play's processor, Poco M2's Helio G80 definitely outshines this phone by a fair margin. With 4GB RAM and 128GB storage, I didn't face any problems with multitasking when using non-heavy apps. There's an adaptive performance mode in the settings that is set to improve RAM efficiency and such, but I didn't find much difference with it. In the gaming side, Call of Duty could go up to very high graphics and high frame rate, which is greater than that of Poco M2. Yes, I didn't expect this at all. PUBG Mobile on the other hand maxes out at smooth and high or balanced and medium settings. However, during actual gaming, Moto G9 Play lags now and then and you are forced to lower the settings. But again, Moto G9 Play heats a lot less than Poco M2, though cooling is equally great on both devices. There's also a feature called Moto Game Time, which helps improve your gaming experience by screening and blocking calls and messages, taking easy screenshots, and much more. Since my primary device for the past few years has been running on stock Android, Moto G9 Play made me feel right at home. With security patches every month, this phone is sure to receive the Android 11 updates soon. The UI has a handful of style customizations which lets you choose between various icon shapes and colors. Now let us talk about Motorola's signature move, that is its gestures. Moto G9 Play doesn't disappoint in this regard, as I totally enjoyed all the gestures like twist phone to open camera, karate chop to trigger flashlight, flip phone for do not disturb mode, swipe to split screen, and finally the handiest of them all for me was using volume keys to change between tracks. The rear square camera module is quite simple and houses 3 sensors along with the LED flash. The 3 sensors include a 48MP main, 2MP depth and 2MP macro sensor. The 8MP selfie sensor lies in the display notch. Out of all the budget devices that I have used, I like the default camera app of the smartphone the most. Everything was easily accessible and there were notes about everything when you use it for the first time. I have clicked all the pictures with HDR and scene optimization on because they improve the quality of the pictures during my testing. Starting with the main sensors, pixel beamed images, they have enough details, exposure, great dynamic range, contrast, but seem slightly undersaturated even with HDR on. As you can see in the cropped images, 48MP mode doesn't improve the details that much, but the file size is obviously 3 times larger. The sensor struggles quite a bit against direct sunlight. The sun doesn't seem natural enough even when it is in focus. Since there is no ultra-wide sensor here, so you'll have to try something with the panorama mode if you can. Portraits have natural background blur and color reproduction, but the contrast is boosted and some smoothing can be noticed in the texture of both my face and my jacket. The edge detection is also soft and not sharp enough as seen in my hair. Selfies are okay in good lighting, but the details are mediocre as expected from an 8MP sensor. Selfie portraits have similar software processing as that of the rear ones. Against sunlight, the 8MP sensor retains decent details instead of completely blowing out the background as seen in Poco M2. Macro sensor has fixed focus and it is kind of challenging to nail the sharpness. When you do nail it, the shots are good enough for a 2MP sensor with software processing similar to the main sensor. In the video department, both the main sensor and selfie sensor can shoot 1080p at 30fps videos. Main sensor can also do 1080p at 60fps. The video has similar look as that of the pictures from the sensors. I compared it with the samples I took with Poco M2 and I found the video quality to be much better here. But that's not all. What blew my mind was the video stabilization of the rear sensor. As you can see in this running sample, I have never seen any other entry-level smartphone perform this good in stabilization. There was no jitter even when fast panning the video side to side. Oh, did I forget to mention that the macro sensor can also shoot videos, though the resolution and frame rate is unknown. I recommend using the main sensor for close-up shots as the clarity is much better and the autofocus is very quick and responsive while the macro sensor struggles a lot. The frame rate for slow motion video hasn't been specified by the company, but this is how good it looks if enough lighting is there. If I have to guess, I think it is 720 at 240fps, but I may be wrong. Unlike its direct competitor Poco M2, there is a dedicated night mode here. Normal nighttime pictures are quite similar on both phones, but HDR improves the exposure on Moto G9 Play a lot in some instances. When you use nighttime, you can see miles of difference in exposure, dynamic range, contrast, and details. Noise isn't visible on long-distance shots, but the softness and grains can easily be noticed when taking close-up nighttime shots like this. Also, I do not recommend taking nighttime videos as they are all grainy and smudgy. There are a lot of interesting modes to try out in the default camera app, like spot color, which focuses on one color in the picture while making the rest black and white. The color accuracy is a hit or miss though. Similarly, cinema graph mode lets you only move a certain portion of a video while keeping the rest still. It may help you create unique GI apps if you are creative unlike me. There is no separate pro mode and you have to toggle the manual settings in the default camera mode. It works the same as any other pro mode after toggle. Overall, this phone would have been great if the macro sensor was replaced by an autofocus ultra-wide sensor that could do macro as well. Nonetheless, the photo quality is great, and of course the video quality is the best in this price segment. The phone has dual-band Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.0 and FM radio. Sadly, the variant launched in Nepal doesn't have NFC. The sensors include accelerometer, gyro and proximity. There is a hybrid dual SIM slot and yes, it is limited to 4G. MicroSD card of up to 256GB is supported. Moving on, we have the single downward firing speaker with enough loudness, no distortion and mediocre sound quality as expected in this price range. Oh, and the earphone provided in the box is also decent and has a control button to play pause music, answer reject calls and skip tracks. One of the best selling points of the smartphone is obviously its battery life. The massive 5000 mAh battery paired with stock Android's optimization and 720p display easily lasted me for nearly 2 days of normal uses. Well, the claim made by the company surely held up. It was also impressive to see nearly 15 hours of screen time even on Wi-Fi. For charging, the 20-watt fast charger provided in the box can be used, but only 15 watt is supported, making the phone take around 2.5 hours to go from 0 to 100%. In the end, let us set aside the cons of this device first. This phone is not for you if you want a full HD+ resolution, best processor, and an ultra-wide camera. Poco M2 is the way to go. But where Moto G9 Play excels in is that sweet software experience and great camera quality. Personally, since I'm not into any mobile gaming, I would have chosen the Moto G9 Play. Let me know which you would choose and why. I'll see you next time.